is Michelle from Little Mama's House, and today I'm going to show you the pens that I use when I decorate my Erin Condren Life Planner. I am going to go through each pen, talk about it briefly, and then what I've done is I've prepared some writing samples from each of the types of pen, and I'll show you how they look when they're in the planner and how much shadow they produce when they're used. So I'm going to start with my favorite, which are the Staedtlers. I have both the Tri Plus fine liners and the Tri Plus rollers. I really like both of these. I like a really thin tip, and both of these produce very fine lines. So these are my two favorite for writing in my planner. I also really like, and I'd say my close second favorite, are the Stabilos, which also are super, super fine. I find the Stabilos slightly less comfortable to hold in my hand because they have sort of an octagon shape to the barrel of the pen. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to show you a little closer up when I show you how they write. Those are my second favorite. I also have a set of flares, paper-made flares, and these I don't like as much for lettering or writing because they're a little bit thick to me. The point does say medium, but I find them to be a little thick. But what I do like them for is coloring in, whether I'm coloring a picture or just filling in some of my writing. These work great because I find them a little thicker, it's a little faster to color in, and they also come in a big variety of different colors, which is nice. I also use in my own planner these Scribble Stuff pens. They're by a company called The Right Guys, and these are a gel pen, and they sort of have like almost a metallic or sparkly sheen depending on the color. And I really like these, again, not for writing because the gel sort of comes out thick, but I really like these for coloring or filling in. These do tend to bleed a little bit depending on the color, so I just have to be careful if I'm going to use them in my planner. They work great for writing on top of a sticker though, so I like those. I also have a set, some Jelly Roll pens. These are by far the most comfortable pen to me to hold. The barrel of the pen is just really soft, and I'm not sure what it's made out of, but whatever it is, I find that I can hold this for a really long time, and it doesn't hurt my hand. That's the plus side. The negative side is that these really bleed heavily in all colors. Sometimes all the way through, sometimes it's just a very dark shadow, sometimes it's a full-on bleed through. But these are really great for writing on a sticker, or if I'm not writing in my planner, I'm not coloring something else, I really like these because the colors are really pretty, they have a really nice shine to them, and like I said, they're really comfortable to hold even for a long time. I also have a set of Sharpie ultrafine markers. Again, these I don't write directly on the planner with because they bleed through, but I do like these for writing on stickers or for writing anywhere in the planner where I really need the writing to be bold and stand out. I like these Sharpies set that I have. It also comes in a lot of colors, so this is nice too for coloring things in. I have one Sharpie pen. I don't use it often. It doesn't bleed. I just don't like the feel of it. It's a little scratchy to me. So I have one in blue, and I'll show you how that writes. It's not my favorite. I also have a set of Inkjoy ballpoint pens. I do like these. They write very nicely, and I'd probably use these for writing if I was going to write, I don't know, a letter or an envelope or something. But I find in my planner that they're just a little too thick of a point for my personal preference and taste. So I like them. I like how they write. They're not too uncomfortable to hold. I just don't use them in my planner because they're a little broad. For permanent markers, I like these Infinities. It says that they're a fine tip. They're not a fine tip, as you can see. It's a pretty standard permanent marker tip, but I like the colors. This particular set I have are metallic. They're by the same company who makes the Scribble Stuff, The Right Guys. So I like these because they're a little bit different. I use these on an envelope if I'm going to send some mail, or if I have to write on top of tape. I really like this set. Then I also borrowed from Linda. I don't use these myself because, like I said, I like the Staedtlers and the Stabilos because to me they're a little more fine. But I know that these Pilot G2 pens are really, really popular. A lot of people who use the Erin Condren Planner like these, and it's their preferred pen. So I borrowed them today to give them a try to see if I like them. And I do like them. I just like what I use a little bit better. They're my preference, personal preference. But I thought I would give these a try and show you how they shadow, because I see a lot of people asking, and even though I don't use them, it's good to know whether or not they shadow, if you're going to go thinking of going to buy them but you're not sure, something that is worth knowing. And I also bothered these Pilot Frixions, which are erasable ballpoint pens, and Linda had just one little set. So I borrowed these just to see how they write, how the bleed-through is. And to me, they're okay. They're not too thick, but the thought of potentially losing some of my hard work in my planner scares me a little. I know it comes back if you put the planner in the freezer, or so I've been told, but I just get a little nervous about that. So I don't use them in my planner, but I'll show you how they write. Linda also gave me to try a set of Lily Pulitzer ballpoint pens. I was surprised because they look like they would be colors, but they're in fact all just black pens. So I'll show you how those look when they're in the planner. And the popular Erin Condren markers that you can buy on her site with the planner. They're supposed to be extra fine fiber point pens. I found them to be, again, a little bit thick, a little bit scratchy. Not my favorite, but I'll show you how they write. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll show you the results of how everything came when I practiced on some paper. Okay, so here I am, and I have my writing samples. What I've done is I had an old planner, and I just took out some pages so you can see how they actually write on the Erin Condren pages themselves, because some paper is thinner, some paper is thicker. But since I use them in this planner, and I know many of you do too, I'm going to show you how they write on paper from this planner. So we're going to start with, again, my favorite, the Staedtler Tri-Plus rollers. These are 4mm rollerball pens. And what I've done for all of the pens, assuming they had these colors, was try to write in a light color, a dark color, and black, so that you can see what the shadowing looks like. So on the light color, the Staedtler Tri-Plus rollers, when I flip it over, you'll see, if I hold the paper flat, and we're looking here at this top row, you can see that you do see some shadowing. It's especially prevalent on the black, but when you get to the light color, it's really not so bad. If you hold the paper up a little bit, you can see it a little bit more shadowing through. But at least in my opinion, it's not bad. It doesn't bother me in my planner. If I was going to color something in really thick with the Tri-Plus rollers, it would probably bother me, because then it would tend to come through a little bit more. But just writing with it, it's not bad, at least in my opinion. So then we have the Tri-Plus fine liners, which are more of like a marker pen. And those are 3mm. They're really thin. You get a nice thin line. And again, we're looking now at the middle line. There's very, very little shadowing. You can barely see it even on the black. And if I hold it up at a little bit of an angle, you can see it slightly more. I'm pretty sure you can see all of them on every pen I used. You can sort of see it on all of the pens. If you really hold it up and stick it in the light, you're going to see shadowing. But it's really very minimal with these. And then finally for this page, I have my Stabilo .88 fine liners, which are 0.4mm. And this is again a marker pen. Those are my favorite type of pens, clearly. And then the light, medium, and dark. These of the three tend to shadow the most for me. But again, looking at this bottom row here, they don't really shadow badly. I actually thought that the dark blue shadowed more than the black on that, but it's not bad. It's not really bleed through. It's really just some light shadowing. It's not enough to deter me from using them. So then I have some of the thicker pens. These are the Papermate Flares on this top line. and they're a medium tip is how they describe it. I find them really thick to write with. I find it very hard to write neatly and small when I'm using these, so they're not what I would use for writing, but they are my favorite for coloring in. These are a marker pen, and when you flip it over, you'll see I find that these shadow more than the other pens. We're looking at this top line here. You can see it the most on the black, but it's really not bad when you lay it flat. You barely notice it. I think if you were to color in a big space with those, you'd probably notice it more, but it's not awful. I would still use them in the planner right on the paper without any hesitation. I have the Papermate Ink Joys, 101 millimeter. These are a regular ballpoint pen. To me, this writes like a regular pen. So the line is relatively fine. It's not super crisp because it's a ballpoint pen. It's not gel ink, it's regular ink, and it's okay. But these have actually the least amount. I can't even see the shadow when I lay it flat at all on those, and you really barely notice it. Again, this middle line, when I hold the paper up and it gets a little bit more light behind it, you still barely notice. Finally, on this page, I have the Sharpie Ultrafine Point Marker Pens. And these have a nice crisp line. It's even, it's uniform, there's not a lot of jumping. They scratch a little bit when they write, but when I flip this over, as you can clearly see, even when laying flat, these bleed through significantly. I have some spots on the blue where it's actually bled all the way through the paper, and you can read the words perfectly, Little Mama's House, and when I hold it up, you see it really shadowing very, very heavily there. So the Sharpie pens, the Sharpie Ultrafines are not a marker I would use directly on the paper in my planner. Bleed through generally doesn't bother me, but I think that this amount I wouldn't like that, especially on some, if it went through and I had a white spot right behind it, I wouldn't want to see that. So these I use reserve for when I'm writing on a sticker inside my planner. For that purpose, they're fantastic because they're bold, they show up, there's lots of different colors to choose from, and they stand out, but the sticker sort of helps prevent some of that bleed through that those are prone to. Okay, next up I have my Right Dude Scribble Stuff Super Gel pens. These are a gel pen. These are not a pen that I would write with because they're a little thick. It's hard to write small with these. The ink just comes out really fast. The gel, I should say, just comes out really fast. And so to me, it's very hard to make crisp, small lines with these. But I love them for coloring in, and I love that have a little bit of a metallic sheen to them because it makes them stand off the paper a little bit more. But they do have a pretty significant shadow. I would say that in the dark blue, that it almost bleeds through. These don't come in a black, or at least I don't have them in a black, so I chose the darkest gray I could find, but the blue actually shadowed more. And when I hold it up, you can really see significantly that they shadowed almost as much as the Sharpie pens. In the middle here, I have the Right Dudes Infinity Fine Permanent Markers. This is a permanent marker. I expect it to shadow significantly. I would not use this in my planner. It's too hard to write small, but they're perfect for using on mail or a piece of tape or for a storage bin or something like that. They're not really great for in the planner, of course, and I wouldn't expect them to be, but they're part of my pen collection, so I thought I'd show you. They do shadow. They don't bleed, which is interesting, but they do shadow significantly and heavily, and I wouldn't want to have to write behind that on a white spot. So I also here at the very end of this page have the Sharpie pen, which is fine. It's a marker pen. It's very, very, very thin, so it produces a really great thin little line. I'd use that directly on the paper in my planner. It's easy to write small, it's easy to write neatly. I only have one because I find it a little scratchy when it goes across the paper. But as you can see, it is advertised as no shadow or bleed through, and it really doesn't. You can't, it's in this box here. You can maybe notice it slightly when I lift up the paper and get a lot of light behind it, but I don't think that you're going to notice that in your planner when you're just flipping through. It's not going to make a big mark that you'll see on the opposite side of the page. So those would be fine to write with directly in the book. In this page, I have on the top line here my Secura Jelly Rolls. These are the jelly pen. These tend to really put out a lot of ink. They're not fine. I find it hard to write neatly. I find it hard to make a nice thin line, especially with this color. I don't have a black one. They do come in black. I don't have it. So the darkest I had was called a Silver Shadow, and they pretty much write in silver. These really produce a lot of ink. They're really a wet pen. They take a long time to dry, and it's really hard to use this, for me at least, to write small. If I was writing, a letter that was maybe that big, or tall letters, or spreading it out across a whole page, it would be fine. But to write in the little boxes that Erin Condren provides, to me, is a very hard challenge with this pen. But I do like how they feel in my hand, so I like to use these for coloring in. But if I flip over, you'll see they do, the light color gives you a little bit of shadow. It's not too bad. But even a dark color, and I used dark purple, that was the darkest I had. The dark color does give a pretty significant shadow. I can see it even when it's laying flat, and then when I pick it up, you see it even more. And the silver shadow almost bled through. So that's, I can read clearly what I wrote on the other side, Little Mama's House. I wouldn't want to use the silver shadow directly on the paper in my planner. Also on this page here in the middle, I have the Erin Condren brand Live Life in Color Extra Fine Fiber Point Pens. A lot of people ask, I see a lot of people asking in the groups how these do. So I thought I'd give them a try. They were very scratchy for me. I wouldn't really describe it as extra fine tip based on how it looked when I opened it, but it didn't produce too thick of a line. It's not my favorite, but I would use it. It doesn't shadow significantly. There's a little bit, but it wouldn't be enough to bother me or to show up too much behind where I was writing. And even when you hold it up, it's very faint shadowing, certainly no bleed through. And then down here on the last line, I have the Lily Pulitzer ballpoints that were just black. These were all black. It's a regular ballpoint pen. I would describe this as just your average pen that you'd use around the house. I probably wouldn't use it in my planner because I like to use, colored pens. But there's no bleed through really. They're just very faint shadowing. What this type of pen does, and why I don't like to use it in my planner, and it could just be that I have a heavier hand with that type of pen, but they almost indent the paper. So if I run my fingers across it, I can feel that it's all raised. Like I can feel the outline of the letters. I apologize for my son. I can feel the outline of the letters where I wrote with this one. And I just don't like that. So I can't see the ink, but I can see the raised parts on the other side where I wrote with these. And so I wouldn't use that type of pen ever in my planner. I don't like that it made the paper bumpy. Lastly here on my final sample sheet, I have the Pilot G2 retractable gel ink pens, fine tip, 0.7 millimeters, and they're a roller ball. I actually surprisingly like these. That's not usually the type of pen I would use, but I actually really liked these. I was surprised. I normally wouldn't pick this type of pen to use, especially in a planner, but it is a gel pen, and so I did like that. This is a gel pen. I really liked how it came out. I wish that there was some more colors, and maybe there are. I just borrowed a set of. It didn't really make much of a shadow. I can barely see it when I lift the paper up, so it's really not too bad. And lastly, for my little test, I have Pilot Frixion a ball clicker erasable pen. It's a gel roller ball, and it's fine tip, 0.7 millimeters. I didn't care so much for these. I felt like the writing wasn't uniform throughout. Like when I look at it, there's spots in my letters, almost that it looks like the ink didn't come out, and they almost look very faint compared to, if you compare this to this and this to this, the writing on the Pilot G2s is more uniform. It's thick throughout,
Mommy,
it's dark throughout, whereas the Pilot Frixion looks almost like washed out. And I don't know if that's because it's an erasable pen or if it's because of the tip, but they have both a fine 7.7 millimeter tip. They're both gel roller balls. I think it's the type of ink that makes the difference. And so even though this didn't shadow, and even as you can see when I hold it up, you can't really see it through there unless I get really quite a lot of light behind the paper. So that's not so much of a problem for me as is the fact that it doesn't write uniformly. And that is it. That's what I have for you today. I tried to give you a wide variety of pens so that you can really see how they all write, and you can make a decision, you know, when you go to start buying your pen or amassing your pen collection. When you use your planner, hopefully that this was helpful for you and gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect from the different types of pens. And if anybody has any type of pen that they have heard about or that they really like and would like to see it used, please let me know, and I can always do a second video, try to find those pens. I like collecting pens. I like having a wide variety. So I have no problem getting some more to test out if anybody has any particular kind that they've heard about that they'd like to see. So again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and have a great day.